Hey, what's up? What's up, everybody? Good morning. Hope everybody is doing fantastic. Dean Kulaweera here. Thanks so much for tuning in and welcome to Wednesday's live stream. So every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, these are my new timings, right? So before, like a couple of weeks back, I was only doing only on Wednesdays. So now I've increased the live streams because I've had so many people reach out to me and say, "Hey, Dean, I'm getting a lot of value out of your live streams, and can you do some more?" Because I know a lot of you have questions throughout the week, so I wanted to make myself more available to respond to any questions and cover all these various topics regarding the job search, right? So that you folks can listen in, get the information, ask the questions, and then go out there into the real world, implement the stuff, execute on the stuff, and see those successes you're looking for in your job search, right? So hey, again, my name is Dean Kulaweera. I'm here to help you out. I'm here to share tips, advice, strategies that you can apply to your job search strategy, your job search situation, and all that stuff. All right. So hey, make sure you introduce yourself in the comments, folks. Let me just check real quick if I am indeed live. Yeah, looks like I am live, and I guess the notification has gone out. So yeah, don't be shy. Feel free to introduce yourself in the comments. Let me know who you are, where you're tuning in from, which city you're tuning in from, and most importantly, what field, what industry, what expertise, what knowledge you bring to the table. So you can make yourself more visible, and all of you tuning in and watching in can make friends with each other, expand your networks, and go out to do amazing things together in the universe. All right. So today's topic, folks, and what I'm talking about is the situation is you're sending out those introductory initial point of contact messages to recruiters, right? Maybe it's staffing agency recruiters, maybe it's corporate recruiters, whatever the situation is. You're sending out your messages, those introductions, right, where you're introducing yourself, or you're sending that first initial point of contact to recruiters. But you're not getting any responses, right? No one's responding. You're hearing crickets. Sometimes you're not even hearing crickets. Even the crickets are not making any noises. And you're wondering, like, what's going on? So as someone who has worked in recruitment, what I wanted to do today is share with you what might be happening and why it is that recruiters might not be responding to most of the messages you folks are putting out. So we got someone here who says Toronto. All right, we got the 6 in the house. Good to see my people in my city and tuning in. Good to have you here, whoever that is. So feel free to keep the introductions coming. Feel free to post your questions and your thoughts in the comments as well. All right, and a quick shout out to everyone on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, tuning in as well. And again, mark your calendars, folks. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, 11 a.m. Eastern time zone. I'm right here live on these platforms, right? So going back to today's topic, right? And again, if you're in this situation, I definitely want to hear what you're experiencing. Like, let me know in the comments, folks. What are you experiencing when you're sending out messages to recruiters? Are you getting responses for the most part? What is your major struggle, your major pain points when you're trying to reach out to recruiters? I definitely want to hear your thoughts and what you're going through. So feel free to share that in the comments. All right. So getting right into today's topic, right, in terms of why recruiters are not responding. And again, for those of you who are just tuning in, welcome again. And I'm going to be speaking about why recruiters are not responding to your LinkedIn messages, maybe to your introductory messages on email and all that stuff. Because for the most part, majority of the time, folks, your first point of contact, the people that are going to be communicating with you, or the people whose attention you want to attract at the initial stages of your job, of the recruitment cycle or the interview cycle for any company, any organization out there, chances are it's going to be a recruiter, right? Whether it's a staffing agency recruiter or a corporate recruiter. So it's very, very important for you to get this part right, so you can increase your chances of having fruitful conversations, getting their attention, having those fruitful conversations, and putting yourself in the recruitment or interview cycle for that organization. Or if it's for a staffing agency, for that specific client, for that position, or any other position out there, right? So what inspired me to talk about this topic, of course, my background is I've been working in recruitment for 8+ years. Recently, over the past year or so, more so transitioning into job search coaching. But in recruitment, I worked 8+ years. So I have been at the receiving end of a lot of the messages that most of you folks are typically sending out. So that's why I'm definitely qualified to speak on this. And how I can share my perspective on what I'm seeing in terms of the messages people are sending out. So most active or passive job seekers, you're using LinkedIn as one of your primary tools, right, during your job search. And this is the impression that I get from most of the candidates that I've been in touch with and communicated with over the years. And in relation to especially using LinkedIn, now today's advice, today's tips definitely applies to not just LinkedIn messaging, but also email as well. But definitely in relation to LinkedIn messaging, one of the major complaints I hear is, hey, Dean, I'm sending out these introductory messages. I'm introducing myself to recruiters. I'm messaging them. I'm putting myself out there, but I'm just not getting any responses. And it's really frustrating, Dean, right? And feel free to let me know in the comments, folks, if you're experiencing this same thing, right? The same phenomena. You're trying to initiate contact, but you're just not getting those responses from recruiters. So what's the deal? Like what's the point of reaching out to recruiters if they're not even responding? Or what's the point of reaching out to anyone for that matter on this great platform? Everyone's talking about how, hey, LinkedIn's amazing. LinkedIn's great. Yeah. I met so many great people on LinkedIn. I got my job on LinkedIn. I found my job on LinkedIn, blah, blah, all this stuff. But how come when you're sending out those messages, it's like no one's responding, right? So I first, to kind of set the stage, I wanted to, speak a bit about why this might be happening. All right. So in most cases, folks, if this is an unsolicited message you're sending, like it's not in response to a job posting or some post that the recruiter posted on LinkedIn. In most cases, if it's an unsolicited message you're sending to the recruiter introducing yourself, the most common reason is the recruiter simply does not have any relevant positions for you, right? This might be the case if it's a staffing agency recruiter, could be the case if it's a corporate recruiter as well, right? So maybe this scenario is it's a recruiter that that you're aware of, who's in your network. You've kind of been messaging each other back and forth occasionally, maybe, or you got in touch with them, or you connected with them on LinkedIn, and you send them this introductory message introducing yourself. So in most of the cases, folks, if it's not regarding a specific job position or job description, chances are it's simply because the recruiter does not have any relevant positions for you. It's as simple as that. And this is probably the majority of the time, 95% of the time, this is probably the major reason why they're not responding. And the reason for this is, and this goes into a little bit of, behind the scenes into, how recruiters spend their day. Most recruiters, and this is based on, again, my experience working in recruitment, the highest priority, folks, is on active opportunities the recruiter is recruiting on, right? The recruiter's number one focus is on, hey, what's active right now? What is most urgent that the hiring team needs delivered on right now? So this could very well be the case. Even if you're reaching out to the recruiter based on some job posting you saw, it could be that, yes, they are recruiting on that position, but it's just that there's another position they're recruiting on right now that's higher priority. So that's why they might not get back to your message right away and right off the bat, because just like any profession, folks, just like any career, recruiters have to prioritize, what positions they're recruiting on, what positions they're going to be focusing their attention on. And therefore, based on that, which messages they receive from candidates that they need to be putting their primary attention on. All right. So again, it could be simply that whatever position you're reaching out to them about, it might not be top of their list of priorities right now. But that does not mean that that's going to be the case forever, right? It's just that right now, their priority is and their focus, their attention is on something else. So someone says they are responding. Who said they're not? Okay, good. So what are you doing on the stream, right? Like, why bother tuning into the stream if this is not a problem? If this is not a problem for you, then hey, hit the X button and leave the stream, right? This session is not for you then. So in any case, going back to what I was talking about today, if they're not responding, chances are they're simply, their attention, their focus, their attention is on something else, right? So that's the number one reason. And again, the extent to which a recruiter can assist you is largely dependent on active orders that the recruiter is working on. And if that active order, what's urgent right now, is not really the position you're reaching out about, then that's probably why they're not reaching out. So although recruiters do certainly market profiles to prospective clients, the core focus is on what's on the table, what's urgent right now. And that's what the recruiter's attention is going to be on. So in most cases, folks, this is why recruiters are not going to be responding to you. So although most recruiters do their best to respond to all messages and emails sent their way, not all recruiters are going to do that, right? So don't take it personally. You just got to keep following up periodically at your end. Now, the other thing is, and the other reason why recruiters might not be responding to your message, right? And this is another reason why this might be happening, is that, and this is, based on my experience working in recruitment, and I've seen so many messages from job seekers and candidates reaching out to me. And the biggest mistake I see in so many messages is that the message clearly does not have any clear intention or ask, right? And what I mean by this is a lot of you folks are not clearly and concisely explaining why exactly you're reaching out and what your intention is and what exactly you need from the recruiter, right? Do you want to find what roles they're working on? Are you writing in response to a specific role that they posted on LinkedIn or Indeed or Monster or something that you saw? Do you simply want to network with them? Is this simply an introductory message? You got to be clear on what you want, folks, right? You got to be clear on what you want. If there's no clear ask, if there's no clear intention, then you got to make sure that you're being clear on that. If not, the recruiter is just going to pass on your message. They're going to move on to something else because your message is not clearly communicating what exactly you want, why you're reaching out. And even worse than this is if your message only contains a hi or how are you with no other content. And I'm going to I'm going to speak about that more later on. But this is another pattern I've seen in so many people when they're sending me messages. They're reaching out to me and they're introducing themselves. It's not simply you introducing yourself, folks. You have to have a clear ask, right? What is your ask? What is your intention? What do you want? Like, this has to be clearly communicated in your message. A lot of people, when they're using LinkedIn messaging, they're treating it the same way as you would, WhatsApp or Facebook messaging or Instagram messaging, where you're kind of chatting with people, or you're treating it like it's, you're texting someone or it's SMS, but it's not. You need to write a complete message so that the person at the receiving end, in this case being the recruiter, is aware of why you're reaching out, what you want, and what your intention, what your ask is. So this isn't WhatsApp. This is not Facebook messaging. This is not texting. You got to write complete messages, right? So this is why, again, I'm going to talk about those very brief messages where you're only asking, hi, how's it going? Or hi, how are you? Which a lot of you are doing, and it's not getting you any responses. I'm going to talk about that a bit later. But the point here is, folks, you have to write a complete message and get to the point when you're reaching out to recruiters, right? This is extremely important as you're formulating your message and you're looking to send it out to recruiters out there. All right. Now, the other point that I wanted to get to is, and this is also very important, is the recruiter does, and this is more in relation to if it's an actual job posting, it's a position you're interested in applying for, and you're reaching out to the recruiter in regards to that specific posting. And if you message the recruiter, you're like, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Recruiter, I'm interested in this position, and this is my introduction, and blah blah blah. You go on to introduce yourself. It could be simply that the recruiter does not see the connection between the opportunity they're recruiting on and what you bring to the table. There's simply a disconnect, and that's why they're not getting back to you, right? So this is again another major reason why they might not be responding is simply because, and I'm just keeping it real here, folks. It's simply because they just don't see the connection, or your message didn't stand out, or your resume didn't stand out if you attached your resume, and they don't see the connection between that and the position that they're recruiting on. So this is why I always recommend, don't depend on just one point of contact. Don't just depend on, sending a vague message with no clear ask, intention, or a compelling message, because you need to, sometimes you got to reach out multiple times, right? And that's why they might not be responding to you on your first contact. So that does not mean your resume or your LinkedIn profile, it's not good, it's not, effective or anything like that. But you gotta have a strategy, folks, in regards to how you're structuring your message. Is it compelling and all that stuff, and how you're communicating your value, right? Because a lot of you're kind of skimming through the job description. You're like, okay, yeah, they're looking for a software developer. Great, I don't need to read the job description in detail. I'm just gonna send a message and introduce myself. That's it. No, but what you folks got to do is, and I know this can be time consuming. You have to take the time to review the job description and highlight those things that allow you to highlight yourself as an attractive potential candidate for the position, right? So these are things that you got to keep in mind as you're formulating your message to put out to the resume. So at a high level, these are some of the reasons why you might not be getting a response to your resume. Now I'm going to go into next a bit more detail in terms of some of the typical messages that a lot of you folks are sending out that's resulting in no responses or very, very few responses from recruiters, right? And this is why a lot of you are not being able to make the most of LinkedIn messaging and also emails as well. So I'm just going to share some of the typical messages I get, right? Now, this is not all messages. Now, maybe your message might be a little different, but typically these are the types of messages most recruiters get that prevent them from wanting to respond to you or even bother responding to you. Right. So here are some of the top messages I see from job seekers. And again, this is based on my time working in recruitment. If I got any recruiters tuning in, any of my recruiter friends tuning in, I'm sure you're going to agree with me in terms of, these being the typical messages you get that prevent you as a recruiter from even bothering to respond to these messages. All right. So look, if you're sending any of the following types of messages, folks, I guarantee you're either going to get no response at all, or at the very best, you're going to get a very low chance of getting a response. If you've been using, and by the way, I'm not trying to make you folks feel bad about this. If you're using any of the following types of messaging, don't feel bad, right? You're here to learn. If you tune into this session, you're here to learn, right? Unlike that other person before saying that, recruiters are responding. So who said they're not responding? Well, wrong session, right? But if you are tuning in, you're here to learn, right? You're here to learn. You're here to figure out what might be going wrong. So don't feel bad. My intention here is to help you out with changing what you're doing right now to changing it to a strategy, a way of doing things that's going to actually get you results. So number one is typical message I get from job seekers reaching out where recruiters will not respond is your message simply says, how are you, right? You introduce yourself. You're like, hey, my name is so-and-so. How are you, right? And that's it. No other information, no further message from there. The reason why I put this as the number one, kind of message I mentioned is this is perhaps like the most common message most recruiters get. It's just an introduction and it says, how are you, right? This is perhaps the most least effective message you can send out to recruiters on LinkedIn, folks. All right. Pay good attention to what I'm saying. This is the most least effective message you can send out to recruiters on LinkedIn, whether it's LinkedIn or even on email, where you're simply writing, how are you? And there's no other message, no other content, no other thing, right? And this goes back to what I mentioned before. This is not WhatsApp. This is not Facebook messaging. This is not you texting your friend, right? Save the how are yous. And if you're only going to leave your message to that, save that for your friends and WhatsApp and stuff like that. If you're gonna ask this, at least, and it's fine to ask, how are you? Hey, how's it going? How are you doing? Completely fine to ask that. I'm not saying don't ask this. What I'm saying is you gotta keep writing out a message, right? Because if you're leaving it at that, you're leaving money on the table. So if you're gonna ask this, keep typing and write out a complete message stating why you're getting in touch and what you're looking to accomplish by reaching out. Here's the reality, right? You and the recruiter both know you're not reaching out to simply ask them how they're doing, right? That's the reality, right? The recruiter knows that, you know that. You're not reaching out to them to ask how they're doing, right? So you got to be reaching out to introduce yourself, your background, your skill set, and inquire about whether they have any active job opportunities for them or whatever your intention is. Be clear about that, folks, right? Be clear about that. The point here is most recruiters do not have the time to exchange 3 to 4 back and forth messages asking, how are you? Yeah, I'm doing great. How are you? And then you say, yeah, I'm doing great. And the message going back and forth until you finally get to your point. Right. And this, and I kind of mentioned this when I posted this stream topic. Recruiters, I know there's a lot of, advice going on out there in terms of, hey, you got to build rapport with people you're reaching out to on LinkedIn. You got to, do a little bit of chit chat. Don't get straight to asking about job opportunities right away. And yeah, maybe that advice applies, folks, but does not apply to recruiters. With recruiters, you got to get straight to the point as soon as possible. Because recruiters, for the most part, are speaking to people that they want to present or they need to present to hiring teams, right? Again, if it's whether it's a corporate recruiter, whether it's a staffing agency recruiter, right? So you got to be getting to the point as soon as possible. So this is why these "how are you" messages, where you're only writing "how are you" and nothing else, is not going to get you results, right? The recruiter does not have the time to exchange messages back and forth like a few times before you finally get to the point. So there's no need to beat around the bush with recruiters, all right? As long as you send out a well-structured, informative message introducing yourself and what you need from them, hey, then that's what you need to be doing as part of your messaging strategy, right? So you got to be clear and don't write these messages that are similar to like what you would write on WhatsApp, like, hey, what's up? Or, hey, how are you doing? Or, how are you? This is not WhatsApp, folks. This is not Facebook messaging. This is not WhatsApp. This is not texting and SMS, all right? You got to write complete messages. All right. Now, the second typical message that I used to receive as a recruiter, and again, most recruiters probably still receive these kind of messages, is vague messages, right? Vague, right? So you're attaching your resume and you're like, hey, this is so-and-so. I'm looking for a job in IT. I'm looking for a job in finance. I'm looking for a job in construction. Well, news flash, folks, right? IT, finance, consulting, these are extremely broad industries. You can't just send a message like that and expect the recruiter to just automatically figure out what you're looking for. Always assume the recruiter is not going to open up your resume. Always assume this, folks. Recruiters are constantly looking through resumes. In fact, they probably already have resumes that they're currently looking at, right? That they've shortlisted, that they're already looking at. So if your message is not enticing, if it doesn't get straight to the point, if it's extremely broad or vague, chances are they're not even going to bother looking at your resume, right? So you need to be very specific in terms of what field you're in, what skill set you have, what expertise you bring to the table, right? If you're only putting, I need a job in IT, I need a job in finance, I need a job in construction, way too broad, folks, right? I don't need to tell you that there's a multitude of different professions within each of these industries, right? So if you're putting that, and in my case, let's say, when I was in IT recruitment, the variation of this message would be, hey, I need a job in IT, or I'm looking for a job in IT. I mean, come on, folks, right? Your industry, whatever it is, probably has so many different career options, verticals, paths, options, and all these different titles and stuff. You got to be specific about what specific type of roles you're specifically looking for. Be specific, all right? Don't say I'm looking for a job in IT, because that's just crazy, folks. Like, it's so IT so broad. And you being someone in IT should know that better than even I do, or any recruiter out there. And this is the exact same case whether you're in IT, finance, construction, accounting, banking, whatever field you're in. Be specific, right? Simply saying I'm looking for a job in a whole industry like that is extremely vague. It's not going to get the recruiter's attention, and your chances of getting a response are going to go way low. All right. Now the other thing is, other typical message I get is, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Recruiter, my name is so and so. My name is this and that. I need your help, or I need your advice, or please advise. So again, this is extremely vague, folks. Right. And remember, when you're reaching out to a recruiter is not a job search coach. A recruiter's job is to not help you find a job. A recruiter's primary function is to help their client, the hiring team, find the talent that the hiring team is looking for. That is the primary function of a recruiter. So you should not be reaching out to recruiters asking for job search advice, right? Because for the most part, recruiters have extremely busy schedules where they have to focus their attention on people that they can present to the hiring team. All right. So if you're reaching out, you're saying, I need your help, I need your advice from recruiters, or please advise and stuff like that. Or maybe you're not asking for job search advice. Maybe you've just said, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Recruiter, my name is so-and-so. I'm a project manager. I'm looking for opportunities in the construction place. Please advise, right? That would be an incorrect message. What does please advise mean? Like, what do you need advice on? Like, are you looking to network with me? Are you looking for advice on whether I'm working on something that's related to you? Are you looking for advice in terms of anticipated positions I'm recruiting on? Or are you looking for advice in terms of you want me to provide you with job search advice? In which case, if I was a recruiter, right, which I'm not a recruiter right now, but if I was a recruiter, I would be the wrong person to ask that from, right? Because my primary function is not to give job search advice. My primary function as a recruiter is to present matching top quality talent to the hiring team, all right? So these messages where you're reaching out to recruiters. Now, again, I wanted to emphasize, folks, I'm talking about messages to recruiters today, right? If you're reaching out to recruiters and your message is, I need your help, I need your advice, please advise, stuff like that. Again, it's vague, and also it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant to the recruiter. The recruiter is looking to present people that are matching skills, matching expertise to the positions that they're recruiting on for hiring teams. All right. So remember that this is extremely important. This is, again, another typical message recruiters get, that they're going to ignore, they're going to pass on it. They're going to be like, yeah, I can't help this person. All right. Now, another typical message, right? And again, hope you folks are taking notes and keeping up with me on this. Another typical message, right? Another typical email that most recruiters receive is, and this is such a pet peeve. And if there's any recruiters watching this, hey, feel free to share in the comments how annoying this is. And that is someone messaging, getting a message that says, can I ask you a question? Right? I mean, this one drives me crazy because, and I'm not being, I'm not being inconsiderate here, folks. It's just that asking someone, can I ask you a question? It's just redundant, because that in itself is a question, right? So this is another type of messaging you folks have to stop sending out. If you're a job seeker, and I'm talking about recruiters today, but just in general, folks, you should never ask someone, can I ask you a question? Because that in itself is a question. So it's redundant, right? So if you're going to ask a question, just ask the question, right? Don't message someone and say, can I ask you a question? And especially, again, going back to recruiters are extremely busy, right? So you got to get straight to the point with recruiters. If you want to ask a question from a recruiter, just ask the question right up front in your message. And don't message a recruiter and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Recruiter, can I ask you a question? That is redundant. That in itself is a question, right? So it doesn't make any sense. So if you want to ask a question, Just ask the question right up front, right? Now, again, because we're talking about recruiters today, right? Reaching out to recruiters. If you are reaching out to a recruiter, you're trying to ask them for job search tips and advice, job search related questions, chances are they're not going to respond. So again, because the recruiter, their focus is on recruiting, right? And finding people that the hiring team is looking for. So that is what their focus is going to be. So if you're approaching recruiters expecting them to help you with your job search questions, general job search questions and advice, chances are they're not going to respond, right? So again, you gotta consider, folks, who you're reaching out to, right? If you're reaching out to a recruiter, that is not the person you need to be asking job search tips and advice from, right? Now, I used to do this as a recruiter, so maybe I set a different standard here. Now, but just because I used to do that does not mean every recruiter out there is going to respond and help you out with job search tips and advice, right? That's something I used to do as a recruiter now, and obviously I still do that right now because I'm into job search coaching right now. But that is not typical of most recruiters out there. Most recruiters out there do not have the time to provide you with job search tips and advice, and that does not make them bad recruiters, all right? Because again, the recruiter's function is not to help you find a job. The recruiter's primary function is to locate talent that the hiring team is looking for, right? So when you're reaching out, if you're asking questions, your questions should be in relation to maybe the job description, what the recruiter is actively recruiting on, what the recruiter, whether the recruiter in fact does recruit for skills requiring someone with your background. Those are the type of questions you want to be asking the recruiter if you are asking questions from a recruiter. And never, folks, never ask anyone, can I ask you a question? Because that in itself is a question, and that makes it a redundant question, all right? So just keep this in mind. Now, another typical message I used to get when I was working in recruitment is, can I call you? All right. Now, if you're reaching out to a staffing agency recruiter, it makes no sense for you to ask, can I call you? Because yes, you can. There's no need to ask a recruiter, can I call you? Just call them, right? If it's a staffing agency recruiter. Now, I would say, and again, just to kind of, keep things very, very clear here, I have personally never worked in corporate recruitment, but I would say it's probably the same thing. My friends in corporate recruitment might agree with me that they have no issue with potential candidates that might be a fit for a position that they're recruiting on. They might not have much issue with you calling them directly, right? Now, again, I've never worked in corporate recruitment. I would assume that this should be fine for those those recruiters out there that are in corporate recruitment, as long as you're a close fit for what they're looking for this position, for this job that they're currently recruiting on. All right. But for staffing agencies, folks, I can promise you it's no problem. As long as the recruiter you're reaching out to at the staffing agency specializes in your field, your skill set, and all that fun stuff, right? So if that is the case, hey, give them a call. And guess what? If you call a staffing agency recruiter, even if they don't feel you're the right fit for that specific position, guess what? Staffing agencies they could have multiple other clients and other positions that might be a better fit for you, and they might be able to actually tell you about those, right? So always keep this in mind. So instead of asking, can I call you? Just call the recruiter, right? Call the staffing agency. Ask to speak to the recruiter by name. Again, this is another one of those questions that could be deemed redundant, right? Especially if you're reaching out to a staffing agency. There's no need to ask, can I call you? The fact that you're asking, can I call you, means that you are willing to call, which is good stuff, right? Good for you if you're willing to call. A lot of people are not willing to pick up the phone and call a staffing agency. So no need to even ask that, folks, because again, you just need to pick up the phone, call the staffing agency, and ask to speak to that recruiter by name. So you're most welcome to do that, right? And this is the case. This is the policy with most staffing agencies. And if any staffing agency out there has an issue with candidates calling in to introduce themselves, unsolicited, if any staffing agency has an issue with that, I mean, it's just crazy. Like, you're crazy. You don't know what you're doing. Like, you're ruining that relationship that you need to be building with potential candidates for the fields, for the industries that you're recruiting on, right? But as far as I know, no agency out there has any problem with candidates calling in unsolicited to introduce themselves and see if the recruiting agency can help them out with any matching positions that they're working on. All right. So again, folks, look, if the recruiter has to go back and forth with you when you're sending out your messages, right? If it's not clear, if it's not concise, if it's not to the point, you should not have the recruiter have to go back and forth with you just to figure out why you're reaching out or what exactly you need, or if you're a right person for the position they're recruiting on. It should all be evident right up front. All right. The recruiter is not Sherlock Holmes and you're not a crime scene investigation, folks. All right. Remember, the recruiter is not Sherlock Holmes. They should not have to investigate and try to figure out, messaging you back and forth, why exactly you're reaching out, or who you are, or what your skill set is, and all that fun stuff. All right. You need to make it as easy as possible in your initial messaging for the recruiter to figure out if you are someone that they can assist, either right now or at some point in the future, right? If the recruiter has to go back and forth, that is not a good sign, right? They should not have to do that. And chances are most recruiters are not going to go back and forth and try to figure out why exactly you're reaching out. So again, folks, what I'm saying is, look, I know there's advice out there on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and all these various channels that, hey, when you reach out to people on LinkedIn, don't get straight to the point. Build rapport, ask them about them. Go visit their LinkedIn profile, tell them what you like about their profile, tell them about this, tell them about that. Be attentive to what they're posting. Yeah, maybe that advice is true, folks, but it does not apply when you're reaching out to recruiters. A lot of you are using this rapport building stuff when you're reaching out to recruiters, and recruiters are not even paying attention to your message, right? And that's a big problem because you're not getting straight to the point, because the story with recruiters is different. Recruiting is a highly specialized skill set, highly specialized. They don't have the time for chit chat. Recruiters don't have time for chit chat. They have no time for trying to figure out why you're reaching out and what you want. They don't have time to figure out, and have a conversation about the weather or sports or something you notice them on their profile. So with recruiters, folks, what I'm saying here is, with recruiters are the exception to this, right? This is the exception. With recruiters, you got to get straight to the point as soon as possible, right? No time for chit chat and all that stuff. So Arif, I see your message here. So Arif says, should we write a detailed message or email to a recruiter? Arif, great question here. Absolutely. You want to write as much detail as possible so that the recruiter can determine, Arif, as they read your message, that this person, Arif, seems like someone that we can assist with this current position that we're recruiting on. All right. So yeah, Arif, basically, don't be vague. No vagueness. No being mysterious on the LinkedIn messages or on the emails to recruiters. You want to be as detailed as possible. Now, that doesn't mean write a whole thesis. That does not mean write your whole life story, Arif, or anyone else out there. What this means is get to the point, provide concise information that's going to be appealing to the recruiter so they can determine within a couple of seconds, yes, I want to respond to this person because I can potentially place this person with the hiring team or get them in front of the hiring team or Sneha, hey Sneha, good to see you here. Sneha, by the way, also, folks, has I used to work with Sneha in the staffing agency world, and she's currently in corporate recruitment as well. So I'm sure, Sneha, you agree with what I'm saying today. What I was basically telling everyone, Sneha, is, hey, with recruiters, you got to get straight to the point, right? You got to get straight to the point. This whole chit chat thing and mentioning things you see on their profile and asking them how their day was, how are you, and all that stuff. Recruiters are extremely busy, folks, right? Recruiters are extremely busy. They don't have time for the chit chat. You got to get straight to the point as much as possible. You got to be professional. You got to be concise. You definitely don't want to write your whole life story out in your message, but you got to be straight to the point and direct with recruiters. All right. So good to have you here, Sneha. Thanks so much for tuning in. And yeah, before I get to, I do see another question. Look, the long story short, folks, look, if you're reaching out to recruiters, don't write a thesis. Don't write your whole life story out, but you have to provide as much information and context as possible. And ask specifically for what you want as soon as possible. Do not make the recruiter guess why you're reaching out. Do not make the recruiter guess what your skill set is, what your field is, what your expertise is. And by doing that, you will increase your chances of getting a response from recruiters, folks. All right. So no mysteriousness, none of that stuff. All right. We got Paul in the house. Hey, Paul, shout out to Paul. Good to have you here, Paul. Thanks for tuning in. So Paul says, I just had a recruiter reach out to me for a phone interview today. Feels good when the recruiter comes to you and not the other way around. All right, awesome, Paul. That's a great win there. Happy to hear that, and I hope you're well prepared for that conversation. All right, good to have you here, Paul. Thanks for sharing that win. Great success there. We got Titi Lope. So Titi Lope, I have a hiring manager. So first of all, shout out to Titi Lope. Thanks so much for tuning in. So Titi Lopez says, I have a hiring manager reach out to me about scheduling an interview with a time that suits me. I sent back an email as the hiring manager keeps responding or keeps reading but isn't responding. What would you suggest I do? All right, so Titi Lopez, there could be a couple of reasons why this is happening, right? So first of all, always remember, folks, and this is not just for Titi Lopez, but everyone else out there. always remember, folks, the hiring manager, right? Their core function is in a totally different area, right? Recruitment, interviewing, these are all things that take them away from their core function, whatever that is. Now, Titi Lope, I'm assuming you're. I can't. I know you've participated in this before. I think you're a business analyst or something like that. But basically, my point here, what I'm trying to make is the hiring manager. Their core function is their attention is usually on their projects or whatever they've got going on right now. So it could be the hiring manager is not responding simply because they had something urgent come up that they have to deal with right now, Titi Lope, right? So maybe temporarily they're putting the interview process on a hold because they had to deal with something urgent that came up. So that could be a reason. Now, another thing could be maybe there's some internal happenings within the company that they can't really talk about. They can't really let you know about, right? So that could be another reason. Like something else is going on. Maybe there's a bit of an internal thing going on that they can't tell you about, but they got to deal with that first before getting back to scheduling you in for an interview. Now, the other reason could be simply that there's some kind of scheduling issue. So maybe there's multiple people involved in the interview. I'm not sure if this is a one-on-one interview, Titi Lope. Maybe there's other team members the hiring manager wants involved. So now what they got to do is they got to be like, okay, so Titi Lope told me she's available at this time on Friday, blah, 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 whatever. Now I got to check with person X, person Y, person Z, make sure their schedule is open as well. So I got to make sure that they're free so they can join the interview as well. So it could be something to do like that Titi Lope, right? But I would say it's nothing really to be nervous about, Titi Lope, because because the fact is they did reach out to you about scheduling an interview, right? And unless something has changed and something drastic has happened at the company where maybe the role is no longer a need, unless it's something like that, chances are it's simply a scheduling issue. It could be that they're trying to get the availability of other people at the organization, or it could be that again, something else urgent came up, right? The hiring manager has to deal with some emergency situation with the project they're working on right now and all that stuff. So it could be something like that. So my advice to you, Titi Lope, keep following up. Keep following up with them. Keep in touch. Keep showing interest, right? Don't give up and don't take it personally, right? I know a lot of people will tell you at this point, oh, yeah, you know what, Titi Lope, if this is the way the organization is treating you, you don't want to work for an organization like that. Folks, that's a bunch of BS, all right? The world does not revolve around you, folks, all right? That advice needs to stop. I'm seeing a lot of mentors posting this on LinkedIn that, hey, if an organization doesn't get back right away, you should forget about them. That's bad advice. It's BS. Do not follow that advice. People have their own core functions, folks. Okay, hiring managers, hiring teams, they got a whole bunch of other stuff going on. They have ongoing projects that are happening, and sometimes they got to put the recruitment process and the interview process on a temporary pause or a hold. All right, and we have to be understanding of that. All right, so Titi Lope, my advice: don't give up, don't take it personally. Keep showing interest, keep following up, keep letting them know you're interested. And chances are, once the hiring manager's schedule clears up and they sort out whatever's going on, they're going to get right back into scheduling you in for an interview. All right. So hope that helps, Titi Lope. Great question there. And I wish you the best and stay positive. All right. We got another question here from my friend Anand Kumar. So shout out to Anand Kumar. Good to have you here, Anand Kumar. Anand Kumar says, recruiter bothers if multiple attentions to profile like employee reference and LinkedIn message job sites applied, or it's fine to go. Oh, okay, Anand Kumar, I'm sorry, my friend. Like your message is all over the place. I cannot understand what you're asking here. So let me try reading it again. Recruiter bothers if multiple attentions to profile like employee reference and LinkedIn message job sites applied, or it's fine. Yeah, my friend, I'm sorry. I have no idea what you're asking here. No idea what you're trying to ask here, right? So I'm not going to try and guess what you're saying. But here's a tip, folks. If you're sending out messages, like you got to make sure that the person at the recipient is able to understand what you're saying, all right? So this reminded me of the importance of the content of your message, right? Good intentions are not going to mean anything if the other person, the recipient, cannot understand your communication, right? So you got to make sure that what you're sending out, your message to the recruiter, your email to the recruiter, you got to make sure, folks, it is easy to understand, and it does not involve the recruiter having to unscramble things or try to decipher things, like it's a Rubik's cube or something, right? So you got to make sure that's all on point as well, folks. All right. So I don't think there's any other questions. I don't see any other questions from the rest of you folks. So look, I hope everyone got a lot of great information out of this session. And hey, for those of you who need help, right, you're like, Dean, okay, so how do I formulate a good message? How do I formulate a good message I can send out to recruiters, that I can send out to hiring teams? I don't know how to send out a good, properly well-structured message. So for those of you in that situation, you need more help. Hey, I want you to sign up for my new course, Applying to Jobs Online 101. And in this course, I teach the 3 steps on how you need to be applying for jobs the right way, right? Step number 1 is applying and identifying key hiring managers, potential hiring managers, recruiters, HR people, decision makers that you can reach out to. Step 2 is direct messaging. So within direct messaging, sending out just some random direct message is not going to cut it, folks. So in my program, I talk about the 4 components to an effective direct message that you need to be sending out when you're reaching out to and direct messaging, not just recruiters and HR people, but also potential hiring managers as well. And then step 3 is follow up. How to conduct effective follow up so that you're not pestering people, you're getting their attention, you're continuously showing value, and you're building a relationship as you're doing it as well, right? And within follow up, I talk about the three factors to effective follow up. So again, my program right now, it's $97 Canadian. It's a mix of pre-recorded video and reading material as well. You can complete the entire course within, like, it's probably 3-4 hours max. Not a lengthy course because I made it as concise as possible. And right now I'm also throwing in extra support. So you get access to a private Facebook group community where I will answer your questions throughout the week that you post onto the Facebook group. And also right now, for a limited time, I'm throwing in a weekly Zoom call where we all meet on a Zoom call every week. And I'm there live to hold you accountable and make sure I'm there to support you with any questions you have regarding the course and executing on what I teach in the course. And pretty much anything job search related as well. So it's great value. So make sure you check it out, folks, and make sure you sign up. I want to see you on the Facebook group, and I want to see you on the weekly Zooms as well. I'm here to support you. And hey, make sure you, and again, if you want to grab that, it's at dkglobaltalent.com/get interviews, dkglobaltalent.com/get interviews, dkglobaltalent.com/get interviews. All right, check that out, folks. And I hope to see you there on the course. And hey, hit me up with a like and hit me up with a share if you found this session insightful and helpful. Really always appreciate those. And mark your calendars, folks. Mark your calendars, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, 11 a.m. Eastern time zone. I'm right here, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. I share various job search tips and advice and strategies that are practical that all of you folks can take and go out there in the marketplace and put into execution, all right? So you gotta make sure, folks, that you're tuning into these and executing on what's being discussed. We got a question here from, I think, Paul. So Paul says, I have a recruiter that reached out to me for a phone interview today. Any tips when the recruiter reaches out to you and not the other way around? Yeah, so Paul, my advice to you is, number one is if this is for a specific position, right? Like you got a job description and all that stuff, make sure you review the job description in detail, right? You got to take note of what are the things being highlighted on this job description, like, and then based on that, what do you bring to the table, Paul, that would be relevant for this job? You got to be you got to be ready for that. You want to highlight, number 2, highlight relevant projects, relevant skills, relevant experience you have in your conversation with the recruiter. And number 3 is you got to be prepare your own questions to ask the recruiter as well. Right now, I don't know if this is a corporate recruiter or a staffing agency recruiter, but in any case, you want to gather more information about the role, the position, the opportunity, the company, et cetera, and all that stuff. And also, Paul, you want to make sure you're running the recruiter through your resume in a way that doesn't confuse them, that they can easily follow, and that isn't confusing to them, right? Now, if you haven't done so already, Paul, I have a free script you can download on my website. It's at dkglobaltalent.com, but I have a free sample script on how you need to run recruiters through your resume. So, and this is also for the rest of you folks tuning in. Feel free to grab a copy of that. It's dkglobaltalent.com, and it's a document you can download. I think it's called Free Sample Script: How to Run Recruiters Through Your Resume. Very important, because if you're being too technical, you're using too much jargon and fancy terms and technology and this and that when you're speaking to recruiters, and there's no logical flow to how you're running recruiters through your resume, the recruiter will end up feeling confused, and they're not going to admit that they don't understand what the heck you're talking about, right? So make sure you download that free sample script, dkglobaltalent.com. And be prepared, Paul. Only other advice is you gotta be prepared to speak about yourself, right? Be prepared to speak about yourself confidently, and be prepared to talk about the relevant stuff that you bring to the table. All right. So all the best on that, Paul. Hey, keep me posted on that. Hope you do well on that. And Arif says, thank you, great advice. Hey, no worries, Arif. Good to have you here. So folks, every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right? Make sure you tune in right here, 11 a.m. Eastern time zone. I'm here to help you out with job search tips and advice that you can implement and apply to your job search. And again, for those of you interested in learning more about my course, make sure you check it out, dkglobaltalent.com/get interviews, dkglobaltalent.com/get interviews. Right now, it's $97 Canadian. That's taxes included. Again, dkglobaltalent.com/get interviews. All right, everyone, have a fantastic day, and I'm back tomorrow, same time, 11 a.m. Eastern time zone. And hey, let's get your job search handled, folks. All right, see you tomorrow.